Greetings and welcome to Co-Ed for Kids Facebook Live. Our organization is a wonderful place to find resources for anyone that is working with or raising children. We are here today with some useful information and a lot of parenting tips. All of us have those times as parents when we question our parenting and our parenting styles. My mom always said to me, "Oh, raising children's such a joy." And there would be days I would say to her back, "Where's that joy again?" when things just weren't always going my way. But we're self-conscious as parents, and we always want to do the right thing for our children. And that at times can be confusing because there's a lot of conflicting means to parent out there. So today, I have no doubt you'll hear a lot of good tips that will give you that aha moment, or, "Oh, I'm going to try that right now," or "I'm going to see if that will work for me." My name is Melissa Shamel. I'm the Special Projects Coordinator for Co-Ed for Kids Prevention Services. And with me today is Karen Gallagher. Karen was here last couple weeks ago with us doing some child development and giving us child development information. She's the parenting educator for the Ohio State University Extension Office in Tuscarawas County. Thanks again, Karen, for being with
Melissa,
us.
thank you so much, and thank everyone for allowing me to come back today. I appreciate it.
We'll recap a little bit from our first session.
Well, as you and I have talked, we have to remember that these are little human beings just like you and I. And probably the most important thing to remember is that their little brains aren't fully developed until age 25 or later. So when it develops from back to front. You know, the back is the old brain, the cerebellum. That's just physical coordination, instinct, and basic skills, kind of like feed me, hug me, change my diaper kind of things. That's all we're born with. And then as the brain slowly develops, that emotional brain, the midbrain area, will start to develop. That's motivation, emotions, memory, bonding. And then finally, the front part of the brain, prefrontal cortex. That's the rational brain. That's the last to develop. So when you consider, you might have a 2-year-old or a 10-year-old or an 18-year-old, that front part of the brain, that's the executive part of the brain, isn't fully developed. That's the part that does sound decision making, empathy, being able to understand and share another person's feelings or what they're going through, considering consequences, regulating emotion, self-awareness, even morality, difference between right and wrong or bad and good. They don't have that yet until it's later. So we have to remember, brain develops back to front, and we can't expect a 5-year-old to do what a 10-year-old does, 10-year-old to do what a 15 or an 18-year-old or an 18-year-old to do what a 24-year-old can do, because they just don't get it yet because of brain development. You and I spoke the last time about, and perhaps some of you remember, I always look at our kids and look at our jobs with our children, and even our grandchildren or kids that we're guardians to. We're directors when they are young, we're managers when they are teens, and we're consultants when they become adults. Directing when they're young, getting to places, directing, probably organizing play dates and things of that nature. By the time they're in their teens, they're making those decisions. They're in different clubs and different sports, so we're managing their time. But then by the time they are in their late 20s, then we become consultants, and we hope that they come back to us and ask for our advice and consultation on different things that are going on in their lives.
Yeah. I think that I've noticed through being in the public and the kind of work I'm doing as an educator formerly, some parents have different parenting styles. I have a niece that I totally admire. She has 4 children. She was a stay-at-home mom. She did a lot of homeschooling for the first few years. And her parenting style is she reasons with the children. And there's sometimes I think, the patience that she has. She talks with them. She explains their consequences. She talks about what choices they're going to make and those consequences. And I know at this point you'll be able to tell us a little bit about what type of parenting that is.
Oh, absolutely, Melissa. And I kind of brushed on this a little bit the last time. There's 3 different styles of parenting. There's the dictator parent. That's the parent who's like the drill sergeant, barking all the orders, being very reactive. There's the doormat parent, where the kids pretty much walk all over them, have them wrapped around their little fingers. They're also reactive parents. But the kind of parent that we all strive to be, and even grandparents, we strive to be good grandparents, is a proactive parent, an active parent, one who is prepared. It's kind of like seeing the future, preparing ahead of time so that when difficulties happen, when misbehavior occurs, that you have things in place ahead of time. And you've already talked with the kids about them. You know, I think about this, Melissa. Your niece, 4 kids, she's an active parent. She does it. She's got it going for her. She knows exactly what she's doing.
She's been amazing. Another area I think a lot of our parents have been concerned about are rules and consequences. I think we can talk a little bit about the difference between punishment and discipline.
Oh, absolutely. I have a feeling your niece does this well. I really do. You know, there is a difference between punishment and discipline. Punishment means to teach by hurting. It's popular because it works in the short term. You know, that threat is over their head. It's something that we've learned from our parents and our grandparents, and even from the kings and queens from long ago. That's what they did. They punished their people when something didn't go right, or they did something wrong. But we have to remember, this leads to resentment, it leads to retaliation, sneaking around. It leads to undermining a good relationship between us and our kids, or us and our grandkids, or the kids that we're guardians over. You know, they start to make excuses, they start to blame other people, and that's not what we're looking at. What we want as active parents, as being that proactive parent, we want to discipline our children. That's teaching in a very easy, simple way, teaching responsibility.
Being accountable.
Absolutely. That's the key word, being accountable. And you have to remember that the discipline has to fit the situation. It's got to be firm, not harsh. And it fosters respect, it fosters trust, and it fosters open communication, because we want our kids to be able to come to us when they have issues or problems, not to go to the neighbor down the street or their best friend's brother or sister or some stranger. We want them to come to us, so we want to foster that open communication. Being an active parent and doing the discipline allows us to help establish rules and consequences, and we allow our youth, our children, to be a part of that system, a part of the planning, putting together of the rules and consequences. Dr. Popkin, who is the founder of Active Parenting Curriculum that we use here at the OSU Extension Office, he always says, democracy doesn't mean you always get your way, but it means you always get your say.
I like that.
Exactly. And, you know, kids just want to be heard. They think we don't hear them as adults. We're not listening. But if we allow them to have their say, and then we maybe compromise.
There's a lot of negotiation that needs to be done.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you mentioned rules and consequences. Yes. You know, we as active parents establish those rules and consequences, and we, again, we reach out to our kids and we have them help us set up those rules and consequences. It doesn't have to be, you know, a business meeting.
Right.
I call them 5-minute snout talks. You know, if you're driving in the car, have a little chat with the kids, sitting down at the kitchen table for 5 minutes. You've got to remember, their little attention spans aren't very long.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a little talk with them. You say, hey, this is what's going on. What do you think would be a good rule for this? And what do you think the consequences would be? And then you share with what you think the consequences should be. Then you compromise. You know, at first the kids are going to look at you and say, no, I don't like that, Mom or Dad or whoever. And you'll say, okay, so let's tweak it a little bit. So you tweak those consequences a little bit. You know, that's really important to remember. It's the art of compromise. Again, you don't always get your way, but you're going to get your say. And then once you establish those rules and the consequences, they may have to be tweaked as they get older, but you have to be consistent. And they may not always work, and you may take 2 steps backwards, but if you're consistent and you keep up, trust me, it will work in the long run. It definitely will work in the long run. I have some examples for you. Can I share this?
And I think, yes, I think that'll be helpful.
And I hope this helps. This is one of the things that we like to use. Think about it when I talk about discipline and consequences that fit the situation. We have either or when then. Either or is what you would use when you want your kids to start doing something. When then is something that you would use when you want your kids to stop doing something. For example, either or. Either you turn off the computer now, or I will shut it down, or I'm going to change the password on the internet so that you don't have access. So you choose, shut it down now, or I shut it down and I change the password. It gives the kids the power. Okay, so let me think about that. Do I want to shut down and still have access, or do I want mom to shut it down and change password? Then I'm going to have to go to her or dad or whoever and ask for permission. The other is when then. So when you eat your peas, then you can have dessert. But until you eat your peas, you can't have dessert. So if you opt not to have dessert, then you don't have to finish your peas. Trust me, kids will opt for that dessert.
Oh, I'll bet. And I like the way that is put, because it's giving them that choice.
Yes.
That they have some control over what the outcome will be.
Exactly.
And they need that.
A little bit. They feel like they're powerful.
They feel,
they feel like they're powerful. For example, if your kids are struggling with their grades, set up a daily homework time. Tell them that this is what we're going to do. Here's our plan. You may have to do homework on the weekends as well until your grades improve. Always make sure it's done in a common area, never in a bedroom. No devices unless it's necessary for the assignment. Start with your hardest subjects first, and then move on to your easiest subjects, because you want to be fresh. And by the time you get to the end, you're tired and you're bored. So we want to start with the hardest subjects first and make sure you're available for them so they can ask you questions if they need help.
I want to say something
Yes,
with
please.
that homework piece. My daughter is an assistant coach at a college, and the one girl she had some papers due, and she put her in her office, and she said she kind of locked her in and said, we'll be at practice, you finish your paper. She took her phone and made her use her work computer because she couldn't access her email. So I thought, well, that was pretty good on, Katie, to think, I need to do this to get this gal motivated to get her homework done.
Absolutely.
But she took her stuff.
That's what, sometimes you have to do it on the fly, and that's what she did. That's excellent. Even as far as cleaning their bedrooms, set up a schedule where they clean it twice a week. Tell them if they don't put their laundry inside the basket and take it to the laundry room or wherever the laundry's done, well, then I'm going to teach you how to do your own laundry, because I'm not going to pick up after you. Simple things like that. No food or drink inside your bedroom. Designate areas where this is okay. This is the place where you can eat food or drinks. If you disrespect that rule that we have, then we're going to have to take that privilege away from you as well. Say they leave their scooter or their bike in the driveway, and you tell them either you put your scooter or bike away, or I'm going to lock it up for 3 days. It can be just as simple as that. Not coming home on time, tell them, well, guess what? Tomorrow night you've got to come home 30 minutes or an hour earlier, or I'm going to come and pick you up. That would mortify any teenager if their parent came to the basketball court and said, it's 7 o'clock, you were supposed to be home, come on into the car. So we have to make sure there are also consequences that we can live with. If we tell them, I'm going to ground you for 4 weeks and you're not going to have the car, I would panic, because then that means I'm going to be the one hauling them around. So make sure it's something you can live with, set up chore charts and options on it, and give the kids choices and options.
And that works in the younger years. All of
Yes.
those would work, and because you're training them as they develop, that they have responsibility and they have to maybe keep their room picked up. And so I can see how that is effective, and you can be consistent starting
Yes.
young all the
Yes.
way through. Then it's established a little bit more in their brains when they get teenage and
Absolutely.
problems get bigger and different.
And I've thought about it many times. I wish I had done this with my own kids, But we have to remember to be active parents and guardians instead of dictators and doormats. Show mutual respect, compassion, and love. Provide support and encouragement. Provide discipline. Teach them how to problem solve. Apologize when we've made mistakes, and be consistent. And of course the active parenting classes that I teach here in Tuscarawas County are through the Ohio State Extension Office, but there's extension offices in all of our counties. Call them up, ask them if they too have any parenting classes that you can take and learn some of these extra tricks of the trade.
And they're practical.
Yes.
They're doable. They're practical tips.
Absolutely,
Which
they
makes
are.
it helpful, because sometimes we need a fast fix.
Yes.
We need an answer right now for a specific problem.
Yes,
don't we?
absolutely.
I'd like to thank you, Karen, for joining us today.
Thank you so much
If there's
again,
anything else you'd
Melissa.
like to add, feel free to put it in here.
Oh, I appreciate it. Again, I can't stress it enough. Remember that they're human beings, and they need respect, compassion, and love, just like we expect it for ourselves.
So we've shared a lot of valuable information today, a lot of practical tips, and I appreciate you sharing these tips with us. I'd like to have the viewers be reminded to join us next month in April. We will be doing our live broadcast April 9th at 5:30 p.m. And our guest will be Newsy Mom founder Michaela Madison and the marketing manager for Newsy Mom, Shahidra Strong. These ladies will share with us some expert tips on parent resilience, how to be that rubber band that you can bounce back from some stresses in your life, and how to be strong and yet flexible. I would like to leave you with this message. Your kids require you most of all to love them for who they are, not to spend your whole time trying to correct them. COAD is a child care resource agency for 31 counties in eastern Ohio. This broadcast today is brought to you in partnership with Ohio Children's Trust Fund and the Eastern Ohio Regional Prevention Council. Our mission is to prevent child abuse and neglect through investing in strong communities, healthy families, and safe children. The Eastern region consists of the following 10 counties: Belmont, Carroll, Coshocton, Guernsey, Harrison, Jefferson, Monroe, Muskingum, Noble, and Tuscarawas. Again, thank you for joining us today. Feel free to leave us a comment, have a question below in the after the video, and we'll be able to get back with you or provide some resources for you. Thanks again. Remember to watch our YouTube channel, COAD for Kids.